Hey everyone, it's Q&A Tuesday with Joe, number 18. This question actually, ironically enough, I actually got it this morning. I dropped off my son to school and I ran into a friend of mine and we started chatting and she asked me what I do for a living. It's always funny to tell them what I do for a living because I love their reaction. You know, when I say that I run an online store and I run it on an eBay platform, and sometimes I try to keep it pretty simple because, for example, here the locals may not necessarily know what an eBay store is. So I just simply say that I make money online. And the question that I got was, why did you start this? I think that's a fantastic question because it kind of made me reflect back as to my headspace where I was when I first started. And I think it's very important to talk about it. It's kind of like the big elephant in the room. You know, why do we start these businesses? So for me, I started this because I was in a big financial hole. So I didn't have a job, and I live here in Mexico at that time I was on a tourist visa, so I couldn't work here, couldn't get a job. And so for me it was important to have a cash flow business to take care of my son, but most importantly for me, I had a lot of debt. And the only way I could, let's say, get past that is to tackle it. Like, you have to deal with the reality of your current situation in life. And big debt was my current situation in life at that time. And so I want to talk a little bit about the debt. We find ourselves sometimes overspending. We don't necessarily do a budget, or we're not necessarily aware of where we stand financially. And I was very guilty of that, and I'm sure many of us are. And I found myself in a lot of debt. I lived off credit cards, and I would be paying off from one credit card to another to avoid penalties. And so it was that kind of toxic juggle I was doing. And so it's important to address this. And I think I would say there's 5 steps that I used to get out of debt, and I did it in 18 months. And I can believe that I actually, tackled all my debt and eliminated it completely within 18 months because it was fairly big. It was over $20,000. And so, there's no way around it but to tackle it. So these are the 5 steps that I took. I read. The first one is reading. And so, maybe a lot of us would, and a lot of gurus, they would suggest to maybe get organized and get real with your finances. But I think it's important to kind of get an understanding of the overall picture and just kind of read a couple of books and get yourself in that mindset, in that mind space, of the financial mind space, so you kind of are a little bit prepared when you actually face reality. And I'll let you know what I mean by that. So a good book to really start with fundamentals is Dave Ramsey was recommended to me. It's called The Total Money Makeover, The Total Money Makeover. So that's the first book I recommend. It's probably a book that's very well praised as well. It's my favorite personal finance book. It's very simple, but it gives you guidelines as to how to get yourself outside of a hole. Okay, very important. The second book I recommend is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. This one will teach you, I guess, how to manage your personal finances, how to manage your credit. Dave Ramsey is not so big with credit cards, and it actually encourages you to cut them. But I think in today's world, 2017, we do need to understand how to manage our credit and our credit card. It's not a bad thing, okay? It can help you in certain circumstances. So I think this book clearly explains that, and it gives you a good education of how to manage it properly. The third book I would say is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Everybody by Robert Kiyosaki, and I think everybody knows this book. And the reason why I leave this as a last book is it's a very heavy financial book. And for me, anyways, I had to read it a couple of times. And what this book really gave me was a different understanding of money. Okay, it's very different than living paycheck to paycheck. It's a different mindset, and it does take a couple of times to kind of go over it and regurgitate it and kind of think, okay, wow, that's a very different way of approaching cash flow and assets and whatnot. So these 3 books are good fundamental to get started. Number 2, of course you can start number 2 anytime. Take a piece of paper and a pen and go down and write down all your debts. Okay, you need to have the actual numbers. And we tend to kind of ignored the actual numbers. We put an estimate. Oh, I think I owe 5,000. Oh, I think I owe 3,000. But no, really, why don't you just write down and go in each account and figure out the exact number to the cent, okay? Because you'll be surprised. You actually owe more than what your brain is fighting you to, okay? Because your brain doesn't want to accept reality sometimes, it's just kind of defying, rebelling. Oh no, it's only 10,000, but meanwhile, it's probably more on upwards of 18,000. So I definitely encourage you to get the numbers down. This was actually a very cold reality for me to put that down on a piece of paper, because seeing the numbers, you kind of have to understand the gravity of the situation, right? So put those numbers down by the cent and look at them and stare at them for a while. Very important. All right, so number 3. Number 3 is after you look at your numbers and you have to see them exactly. Tally up everything and find out the grand total. It may scare you, but you got to face your fears, okay? So you got to take a look at the number, and you need to determine a plan of attack. So you got to figure out mini payments, like your minimum payment. Pay a little bit more on each, and of course you got to tackle the one with the biggest debt first. So Dave Ramsey actually goes over this in more detail in his book, so I definitely encourage you to read that first. And that's why I say read the book first before you tackle this, so you actually have an idea of what he's trying to tell you. So tackle the big debt first, and then it's kind of like a domino effect. Then eventually, once that's taken care of, then you can snowball to the other ones and eventually take care of them. And it's possible. Number 4. This one is a very cold water, ice water reality check, and that's downsize of lifestyle. Okay? And maybe that means you need to bring more lunch to work instead of going out, eat at home. Or, maybe you don't have to spend $5 on a coffee, every day. You don't have to spend your paycheck at Coachella. Maybe you need to sacrifice some of these parties and some of this kind of lavish lifestyle that got you in trouble in the first place. And when I say lavish, I don't mean like blowing up money in Ferraris, because we don't have that money. But we, we got ourselves in debt for a reason, right? So you need to eliminate that and be aware of that, And if that means maybe moving in a different apartment that's a little bit cheaper, maybe moving with your parents again until you get yourself back on your feet. Move with a roommate. These are kind of things that you may not want to hear, but that's the reality of things. You may have to sacrifice. One thing for me when I moved to Playa was cheaper lifestyle, and I knew that's going to help me tackle my debt faster. Here I don't pay $5 for coffee, and I felt I didn't want to sacrifice some of the things like that, and plus I want to adventure in other things. But anyway, so maybe you need to think about something like that. Downsize your lifestyle. Sacrifice a little bit, a year, 2 years, whatever it takes to get yourself out of the debt. Because I'll tell you, if you have debt, you can't grow. No matter what you do, business, school, whatever, your work, 9 to 5, that debt is going to drag you down like a big, heavy rock. So you need to tackle that first before you can clean up your life, before you can do anything, before you can start a business. And of course, I'm not saying that you can't do all of these, but you need to address that first and foremost, okay? So number 5 is celebrate these small wins. So when I first paid off my debt, the big one, I went for a dinner. Now, I don't encourage you to say, okay, well, you pay off the debt, let's go splurge and blow a lot of money. No, that's not the case. The case is actually this opportunity. It's allowing you to celebrate maturely and respectfully. So now you have an opportunity to celebrate, to do it right. You can go to a nice dinner to celebrate. You can go get a massage or something that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to spend a lot of money. So you have to celebrate these small wins so you can encourage yourself, be your best friend. You need to have yourself in a corner, right? So keep those in mind, and I wish you luck with removing the debt. And I know I've done it in 18 months, something that I totally didn't think it was possible. Because when you look at the big number, it's hard to imagine it kind of disappear. But if you break it down in these small steps for yourself, it's definitely doable and not impossible. Thank you. And as always, happy self.